before we kick off then, I'll just do some quick intros on our side. So I'm Paul Kennedy, I'm a Senior Development Manager at the LDA. My background originally is structural engineering, moved into project management then, and I've been with the LDA about 3 years now. My colleague Shauna here is a development manager with the LDA with a background in planning, and my other colleague Kevin is a structural engineer by trade, but he's our technical design manager with the LDA. So just in terms of agenda then, so conscious that some of your members will be familiar with the LDA and maybe others not so much. So in terms of the agenda then, we're kind of keeping it kind of high level at the start, and we'll get into a bit more detail as we go. I'm going to start by giving a general overview of the LDA, the different delivery mechanisms we have, our development pipeline, our contracting and procurement routes. I'll hand over to Shauna then. Shauna will go through the different tenures we have on our LDA sites. Shauna's going to look at Shanghana as a case study on that. And then Shauna will go into different planning routes we have across our sites and the standardization work streams that are ongoing at the moment across the LDA to try and drive efficiencies across our schemes. And there's a case study on that as well with the apartment typology booklet and Dundrum. And then finally, Kevin is going to go through some of the development challenges we're facing across our sites. And Kevin's going to look at case studies on Castellans and Balbriggan, which has quite a large upfront infrastructure package on it. And then Dyke Road in Galway. And then finally, Bluebell site in South Dublin, which has an enabling pack and some existing structures on site as well. And then finally, we'll do a Q&A at the end. So who are the LDA firstly? So the LDA is a commercial state-sponsored body focused on increasing the supply of affordable homes through either direct delivery or through development partnerships, and I'll describe that a bit more in a second. It's worth noting as well that the LDA holds its cost rental assets, so we have quite a significant asset management function in addition to our delivery arm as well. So this slide here just gives a bit of a current snapshot on the LDA itself. So in terms of capital capacity, there's 5 billion committed equity and there's 1.25 billion in borrowing capacity. Across the LDA sites then, or just overall in general, all the sites we're looking at, we estimate there's around 21,000 homes in terms of land capacity. To date, then, there are over 3,000 people living in LDA homes across either affordable purchase or cost rental schemes. Our staff count at the moment is just over 200. We got quite a lot of different business units in the LDA, as you can imagine. So we've got people in development, construction, planning, investments, legal. So there's a lot of different business units to feed into the overall delivery. In terms of delivery arms, then we have Project Tusig. The aim for Tusig is to achieve 8,000 homes delivered by 2028, and then across our direct delivery arm, we have 22 sites that we're looking at as well. So between Project Tusig and our direct delivery sites, we have just over 5,000 units under construction at the moment. It's worth noting as well, actually, on those sites that are under construction and pre-construction, we have quite a lot of sites that are delivery partnerships with the local authority as well. And those partnerships have worked really well for us to date. This slide then is just a bit of an overview of all the different business units across the LDA and how these are all feeding into our LDA delivery. In terms of those two delivery mechanisms I mentioned there, so firstly, there is direct delivery. So this is land that's sourced from either state bodies or acquired. And then those lands are delivered through either direct contractor procurement or householder joint ventures. And then the other delivery arm we have is Project Tusig that I mentioned there. So Project Tusig was established to kickstart either stalled or unviable housing projects. And then in parallel with those two delivery mechanisms, we've been ramping up our private land acquisitions over the last 18 months in particular. So more recently, in that 18-month period, we've acquired 2 sites, for example, in North Dublin near Clongriffin train station, and another site in South Dublin, just off the Naas Road, and there's others as well. But across those 3 sites anyway, there's capacity for around 5,000 homes. So this slide then just shows our direct delivery arm on the left, with a pipeline there of around 20,000 homes, and then our Project Tusig delivery mechanism on the right. So to date, from Tusig, there are 700 homes have been delivered to date. There are 2,800 homes currently in progress. There's a framework set up for Project Tusig 2, which has 15 of Ireland's the largest home builders. And the target then, as I mentioned, for Project Tusig is 8,000 homes to be delivered by 2028. In terms of our development pipeline then, so this slide just shows a bit of a snapshot of the numbers that we have at each stage across our developments. So initially, the LDA will look at a site, we'll do an initial assessment on it, we'll do due diligence and capacity study. And if it's deemed suitable to move forward for development, then the site will move into the development stages. It'll go through planning stage, detail design, tendering, into construction, and finally handover. So just to give you an idea of some of the sites we have under construction then at the moment. So most of our sites under construction are in Dublin at the moment. We have a site in Kildare and Cork as well. A couple of those sites that are under construction are examples of sites that we would be in partnership with the local authorities. So, for example, St. Teresa's Gardens in Dublin and Croncastle in North Dublin as well. They're both partnership sites with DCC. Figure 1 then on the top right is Shangana. That site was complete, phase 1 of that was complete last year. And figure 2 underneath it then is Dubai Barracks. That's under construction at the moment. That's due to be complete by the end of this year. Sorry, phase 1 is due to be complete by the end of the year. In terms of sites then that we have either lodged planning for or got approval or planning approval on, there's a kind of a more of a spread on these across the region. So we have sites in Dublin, Cork, and Limerick. I think overall there's about 4,000 units at this stage. Figure 1 then is Bluebell, that's in North Dublin. So we just recently lodged a planning application on that. And figure 2 is Wilton in Cork. So we've just recently lodged a planning application on that as well. Projects at planning stage or pre-planning. Again, there's a bit of a wider spread on these across the country. So we've got sites in Cork, Limerick, Galway, and Dublin. I think overall, from homes at this stage, for the sites at this stage, there's around 6,000 homes at this stage. Figure 1 is Dyke Road in Galway. That's due to be lodged this year, and Kevin's going to talk a bit about that in the case studies. And figure 2 is the Poland in North Dublin, so that was just acquired recently. In addition to that, then our planning team are also looking at a lot of earlier stage strategic sites. So the likes of Inchicore in Dublin, Cobra Quarter in Limerick, and Sandy Quarter in Galway. And the intent here being that these sites will be assessed and then released for or unlocked for direct delivery. Just to give a summary then on the contracting and procurement routes we're adopting across our sites at the moment. So these are the 4 main delivery models that we've adopted across our direct delivery sites. So firstly, we have sign and build contracts. We typically use these on higher density schemes. Typically in scenarios where the sites are kind of shovel ready or there's minimal enabling works to be done on the sites and the contractors can kind of hit the ground running. Then we also have our early contractor involvement delivery model. So this is also used on high density schemes, but we use this in scenarios where there's more complexities on the sites like enabling works, etc. So these kind of sites would benefit from having contractor involvement early days. We also have our design by employer traditional contracts, again, that's used on higher density schemes. We use that in scenarios where we really want to kind of take closer control or hold control onto the design a bit more than other schemes. And then finally, there's the development partnership or the hybrid model. So we use that on low to medium density schemes. And the idea there is we would partner up with developers to try and fast track delivery on those sites. So to date, we're using design and build on a couple of projects. One being Clongriffin in North Dublin. ECI has been used, Clongriffin, North Dublin is with walls. ECI has been used on St. Teresa's Gardens in Dublin with John Paul Construction. The design by employer is being used on Cromcastle at the moment with Bennett's, and the development partnership hybrid model that's about to be used on Skerries. In terms of procurement then for these direct delivery models, all of these models that in terms of procurement, they're typically run as a two-stage competitive process. So the first stage being pre-qualification, where this is open to all parties on e-tenders. Through the pre-qual process, then we will shortlist 4 to 5 of the top scoring applicants, and then those 4 or 5 will be invited to submit a tender at the RFT stage. Just in terms of consultancy services, then for our direct delivery sites, we have a number of frameworks in place. The idea being with the frameworks is to streamline the procurement process to try and fast track delivery. So I've just listed a couple of the frameworks we have in place at the moment. The first one there is the architect-led design team. So this is probably the most commonly used framework at the moment. In this scenario, all of the sub-consultants are appointed under the architect, except for the project manager and the quantity surveyor. That framework timeline is 2022 to 2026, but a new architect-led design team framework is due to be established later this year. We also have a civil and structural direct appointment framework. So that's currently in place at the moment, and we're using that on a couple of our sites, like Clongriffin. I think it's used on Dyke Road as well. Then we also have frameworks for mechanical, electrical surveys, technical authority, site investigations, and there's a couple more frameworks there as well. All of these are advertised on e-tenders again, and in terms of procuring services from these frameworks, it's done via mini competition, cascade or rotational call off, or else there's also an option to direct award in certain scenarios. That's it from my side then, so I'll hand over to Shauna now, who will run through the tenure overview.
Well, and thanks, Joe. Thanks, Owen, for having us here today. I suppose we kind of live and breathe this stuff, so I appreciate there's a lot of heavy numbers on the board there and a lot of info to process. So we'll do Q&A at the end if there's any more info you need. But essentially, what Paul's taking us through is our mandate. It's to deliver housing, and it's to deliver housing for the government. We are the government home builders, and it is building housing and building it at pace. And that's, I suppose, what Paul's been taking us through. It's starting in the strategic areas. Our newly formed programme office manages those strategic areas like Coburg Quarter in Limerick. It's piecing them off and taking them into our development team, where we work to then deliver those as cost effectively, as a high quality design, and work within the parameters of what our products are that we have to deliver. And our products, and the term we always like to keep to, is we're delivering homes, and we're delivering homes for people, and we do that in 3 different ways with the different tenures that we offer. So I suppose just to take you through a working example, it might be a little bit more digestible. Shangana is one of our flagship projects. It's next to Shankill in South Dublin. It's been on quite the journey. It was one of our first sites to kind of get up and running. It's our first direct delivery to start handing over in phase 1. So we are happy to say that homes have been sold here. Applications have been received for our cost rental, and there is about 200 homes, social homes, to be delivered as well. So just a bit of background. So Shangana was granted in July 2020, so it was the SHD process. And what's important about Shangana, it was a partnership scheme with Dún Laoghaire. It set the way for the LGA working hand in hand with our local authorities. We do that across multiple sites. So it set up that partnership arrangement. Shangana is very much an important project to us, and I'll show you why. So it sets the tenure that we have. So we have cost rental apartments, you'll see are in green, affordable for sale. So here's a unique site where we managed to have affordable for sale apartments. So it's building the homes at a threshold where we're able to stay within our limits that are in our mandate. So when it comes to cost rental, we have to aim to be a certain percentage below the market value. So what that does is it creates a bit of a pressure pot for us to deliver within the confines of the cost thresholds in order for the tenants to go in and the purchaser to be able to afford and be eligible to apply. So here we have cost rental, affordable for sale, and we have social as well. So those are our three main tenure types. So cost rental, for those of you who don't know, it is a long-term secure tenancy. Once you're in as long as you can kind of keep paying rent. And it's means tested on day one. It's set on your affordability threshold and your rent doesn't change from that point. It's probably worth noting that the rents are set to basically cover the building costs and the maintenance and the life cycle of that building and the build cost. So we're not aiming to make profit here. It is to build a home that's within the affordability threshold, so that anybody eligible, I believe the threshold in Dublin at the minute is 66 below net, and that's for the entire family. So those are obviously our pressure points for trying to deliver homes in a very tough market at the minute in terms of buildability, but we're also kind of trying to get below certain thresholds as well. So I might talk to that in a little bit, how we do that. So just to understand the magnitude, I suppose, of what we're doing these days is 1,500 households we have now reached that live in our cost rental homes, and they're all across the country at this stage, and we are continuing to deliver these. Most of these are through our Project Tussock, which Paul touched on, our kind of partner groups. It's supporting the private sector in what they're doing and helping them build out. And ultimately we take on those assets and we purchase those for our cost rental tenants. Affordable for sale then works in the same way. We all know building apartments is extremely challenging. Our product for affordable sale tends to be in houses and the lower density stuff. We do have apartments as well, but mostly it is the lower density stuff. And 330 homes probably seems like a low number, but we're just getting started. And I suppose that's the good work of our asset management and our affordable for sale team who are looking after those properties. Social is also an important one for us. We work very closely with the local authority and we deliver social housing in two ways, more or less. So it's the regular Part 5, if you guys are aware. Normal planning application has a Part 5 stipulation. We comply with that as well, but I suppose we kind of go one step further and we work with local authorities to see what land they have, to see what their needs are for any area. And I suppose what we bring is the developer element of it, and also I suppose to bring mixed tenure to areas. We've a site there in Bluebell that is 60% cost rental, 40% social. So that'll essentially be a joint kind of joint venture for us both. That application's just gone in. So we're finding the local authority partnership routes are extremely successful, and there's a few there to mention. So Shangana, Dundrum, Denore, Cherry Orchard, Croncastle, Blue Boss. We've 4 with Dublin City Council, so it's very much a tried and tested method that is very much working. We're also actively working in Galway and in Cork as well. So just in terms of planning, so we're moving down the layers of detail, and planning, because we work with local authority, it allows us access to different planning routes that private developers might not have. So I'll just take you through those. You may or may not be aware. So LRDs, it's kind of your standard planning application route. You're probably aware that took over from the SHD process. We also have the Section 34, so I believe if it's less than 100 units, we can go down that route. But primarily and more what we're doing these days is working closer and closer with the local authorities, and that's in the Part 8. It's in the Part 10 route. So Part 8, the application is with the local authority to the local authority. It's considered exempted development. So that involves us working hand in hand with the local authority and each technical division of the local authorities to get that over the line. And Part 10, it's an application to the board. So those tend to be our larger applications. Standardization. I suppose I spoke earlier about the affordability challenges that we have to hit. And how do we do that? And I'm hoping I keep you guys with us here, but it's a really important thing what we do here and maybe how we're trying to help also the market as well in terms of how we all standardize. And we do that with 3 pillars. And I don't think these are of surprise to anybody, but they're design, cost, and program. And I suppose I'll take you through each of these and I suppose why we standardize. the LGA have the affordability thresholds, as I said, to meet. We now need to benchmark against ourselves. We need to set the standards. We need to assess how do we build apartments and how do we build them efficiently so that we can still deliver apartments to the market, and that's in our cities largely. So we develop our own benchmarking, our own KPIs, and we start to retain our own data, and we bring this back in and we say, okay, what works, what doesn't. We also have a sustainability goal. We have our own guidelines in place, our own policies that lead the way. And essentially, a key kind of thing that jumps off the slide there for me is our standardization is readying our developments for the future use of MMCs, which is obviously a topical, way to go in terms of what we can do for both cost efficiency, buildability, and sustainability. So in terms of our work streams, we're kind of busy in the agencies to set these up, and it's equally important to us to drive the projects as it is to layer in all these standardized approaches. And one thing we do, and something I'm going to focus on, is our apartment typology booklet. You may or may not be aware it's available on our website, but essentially it's a playbook for our designers and our architects. So on day one, we give them our high density guidebook, essentially. And it starts in terms of building layouts right down until specifications of our bathrooms. So everything across that booklet is fully costed, fully considered. And what it does is we know what the costs are going to be. We can estimate as we go, and we bring back in that data to see what's working and what's not. So that was published, I believe, in 23. We're currently updating it with all of the new knowledge that we've been obtaining from our developments. And as we deliver on the direct delivery side, so that's our own sites that we're delivering on, we feed that back in, and we are kind of always assessing, are our apartment depths okay? Are our structural specifications of standard? What is our market perceiving them to be? It goes into the granular of detail, and I can't stress enough, it's entirely costed, and we're guided by cost and the quality of design. So that's just a bit of an overview of the apartment typology booklet and what's in it. As I said, it's available online, and for us, it's kind of our gospel. When we start a project, we stick within its parameters. If something's not working, an architect will come to us and tell us why. We'll assess that, and then that'll feed into the next iteration if it so needs to be. Just another case study. It's always good to apply these things. Dundrum is a good success story of ours. We submitted an SHD in March 2022. I believe that SHD is still in JR as we speak. We then took to submit a new application. So it went in September 24 as part 10. So what that allowed us to do was apply the learnings from March 22 to September 24. And that was our apartment typology booklet. The scheme that was submitted in 2022 was a perfectly good scheme, but I suppose we saw directly the impacts of applying the apartment typology booklet and what that meant to the building forms, building shapes, and most importantly, cost. And I keep talking about cost, but essentially that transpires into a rent. And what we need to do is keep the rents down for our tenants. So that's why we are constantly on top. So you'll see the building shapes there changed. We standardized balcony types. We went from 7 apartments per core to 12, and essentially increased the density. And overall, I can't tell you the cost per home that we brought it down, but it was significant, and that transpires into the rent that future tenants will have to pay. Costs, keep talking about it. It's incredibly important to us. We've entirely standardized how we receive costs from our external QSs that feeds into our own cost managers internally. We've standardized each cost code, elements, you name it, it's all standardized. So when we get one cost plan on one scheme, we compare it to another, we can directly see what's performing, what's not, and ultimately ask the question, why is it not performing? We're a big fan of value managing. We believe if you continuously value manage through the early stages of the process, you'll then reap the rewards when it comes to value engineering later on. We are embedded into the design process from day one with our design teams, our QSs, and ultimately we're keeping an eye on what's on the right-hand side there, which is our KPIs. So those are our real-time metrics as to how the building's performing. Program, I think program is pretty obvious as well. We've standardized how our projects are recorded and how they are brought back inside. We can put 2 programs side by side from 2 entirely different projects. It has the same milestones, the same format, the same headlines, and we can directly compare as to why one is achieving a programme faster than another. And ultimately, and as I spoke at the start of this, our mandate is to deliver housing, so all of that info gets fed straight back up to the department and to our board. I'm going to hand you over to Kevin now. I hope you're all still with us.
Great, thanks, Shauna. So I'm just going to talk you through some case studies, some of our challenging sites. There's a lot of slides. I'm going to go through them pretty fast, but the intention is just to give you a flavour for the types of jobs that we have. So the first one is Castlelands. So this is in Balbriggan. It's over 800 homes. And some of the challenges we have here is there's significant infrastructure required to deliver the site. We've got a link road that cuts from east to west through the site. The site is bordering with the Belfast to Dublin train line. So we've got to put a new bridge over the train, and we've got a diversion to road required there as well. We've also got some significant diversions to water mains and sewers. We've got a new pump station, and we've got some significant cut and fill. So you can see here the new road that's proposed with a cut and fill heat map there just to demonstrate that. You can also see in the bottom screen grab, which is just a temporary road that's required to facilitate construction of the new bridge and the new road there. So there's a quick slide here for the new bridge. A couple of points to note would be that the foundation types are different on the different sides of the bridge, which is just as a result of the rock level varying there. You can see in green the significant increase in levels to accommodate the bridge. We've also got a reinforced soil retaining wall with some masonry cladding there. And maybe move on to the service diversion here. Not going to go into too much detail on this, largely because I'm not all that familiar with it. I haven't been hands-on in this project, but suffice to say that there's significant services cutting across the site that are not serving the site, they're existing. So there's temporary diversions in order to replace those to suit the proposed site. Another project we have is Dyke Road, which is in Galway. So this has been identified as a strategic regeneration site in Galway City Development Plan. It's a catalyst for regeneration of the wider area, and it's well connected with sustainable population growth within the city footprint. So you can see a couple of images on the right-hand side there, just for context. So the LDA is delivering this in conjunction with Galway City Council. We've prepared a development framework for the entire site, but the LDA are delivering phase one, which in the top right you can see there the red boundary of the area that the LDA are involved with. It's 219 homes. It's 90% cost rental and 10% social, 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. So phase 2 and phase 3 will be delivered separately by Galway City Council. So there's really just a couple of images here again, just to demonstrate the site. Quick site plan here. Probably what's worth noting is between the proposed site and the river, you can just see the outline of a raised area, and that is existing flood protection is the Dyke Road wall. And so you can see in this section here the raised area which is existing on site. So although that is flood protection, it isn't sufficient to protect the site. So the unique feature of this job is that the ground floor has actually been raised up to a higher level than that protection. The facade of the building does continue down to meet the ground, but it's basically permeable areas in the facade, so that in the event of a flood, basically we can flood underneath the building, and the habitable areas of the building will be raised above it. The ground, lower ground area is utilised for bin stores and bike stores and areas that can accommodate flooding, basically. From a geotechnical perspective, the ground conditions are not great. There's made ground, there's organic deposits and peat, soft ground. So it's a piled foundation. It's a suspended ground floor slab, as we noted a second ago, and even the pavement design has an element of reinforcing due to the soft ground. So the last case study then is Bluebell. This is LDA in partnership with Dublin City Council. We've got, this is in Dublin 12, next to the canal. There's 4 apartment buildings and 383 units with undercroft car parking. The site challenges here are really related to the existing structures on site, to the archaeology, the existing services, and the potential Lewis line, which has to be accommodated on the site. So just a site plan for context, the area on the right of the screen with the light green hatch is basically an exclusion zone for a potential Lewis that may or may not be delivered in the future, not part of the LDA works, but it's effectively an area of the site that we've left idle. A couple of images just for context as to what we're delivering. With regards to the existing structures then, there's in-ground tanks present on site, which are filter tanks. So the image on the right-hand side there is from 2009. So that shows the 3 tanks full of water there, one empty one in the background and one covered one in the foreground that you can just make out. And then the 2 images on the left, on the far left is from 2013, which shows the condition at that time. And then the middle one is from 2022. So you can see that nature is starting to take the site back. It's becoming overgrown. So this is a couple of images from what the site is like at the moment. The tanks are empty of water, but are overgrown, and they're in various levels of disrepair. And there's a bit of context as to what we're proposing. So we're effectively proposing to build on top of these tanks. The tanks are of varying ages. So on this demonstration here, tanks 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are of archaeological significance and need to be treated so. 5, 6, and 7 are not, and they're just effectively obstacles in the way at the moment. So with regards to 1, 2, 3, and 4, the intention is to retain as much of the original fabric as we can while still delivering the building. So for 2 and 3, you can see that the red dashed line, that's elements of the filter tanks that will remain and become a feature of the site. So that's areas where we'll actually do local repair work to that. And the other areas we'll have to partially demolish the tanks in order to accommodate the buildings. And in those instances, we'll retain the stones, we'll stockpile them on site, and they'll be used for different landscape features around the site. So here's some context of what the finished product is going to be. You can see that this is the picture sort of sitting, the building sort of sitting within the filter tank, as we showed a minute ago. That's an instance where the filter tank there will be repaired, and it'll be a feature of the site, which is nice to have. On the left, you can see just a section through the building that shows the existing tank will be kept within the ground, and we will effectively put a piling mat in, pile through it where we need to in order to support the building above. But wherever possible, the fabric of the tank just remains in the ground. And again, wherever possible, it's visible and incorporated into the site. And again, just for context, another section through the site, the green being the proposed building, the dark grey being the existing tank, and the red there being the elements that actually need to be demolished in order to accommodate piling mats and piling rigs, etc. Similar section here with demonstrating where we actually have a proposed basement above the tank, and in this instance, it's a more modern structure, so we're happy to remove sections of that in order to accommodate the basement. So there's some significant existing structures existing services on the site as well. We've got overhead cables on the west of the site. We've got underground cables again on the west of the site. The underground cables are at significant depth. They're 12 meters below ground. So these would have been directionally drilled to go down under the canal and pop up on the other side. Obviously, this wasn't us. This is the condition of the site that we've inherited. But nonetheless, there are challenges that we need to address. So you can see here that this is our proposed pile layout. You can see the pink line just to the west of the building. That's an existing ESB cable in the ground at a significant depth. And the blue line running through the building there is an air grid. It's an empty duct, but it is a duct that we have to design around effectively. So that's kind of under design with our consultants at the moment. We're trying to mitigate the impacts there. The existing filter tanks, so just to maybe give you the very brief history of the tanks. The tanks are designed to, as the name says, to filter the water, and then that water would have been used for pumped away for industry within Dublin. Obviously redundant a long time ago, but there's a lot of infrastructure left in the ground from that process, including, as you can see here, one instance, a connection to the canal. So that's some areas that we need to investigate to basically de-risk those, make sure everything's redundant, and make sure there's no risks left for the site. The tanks of varying ages have different archaeological importance, and so everything needs to be cleaned out, surveyed, repaired where necessary, or if it's going to be demolished, it just needs to be surveyed in advance of that by our own archaeologists and the city archaeologists. We've also got a fairly decent retaining wall running along the edge of the canal. It's retaining up to about 2 meters at its highest point. Again, the intention is to keep as much of that wall as we can, and there'll be partial repair, partial strengthening, and partial demolition where required. So just a quick summary then. The Land Development Agency, we're a commercial state-sponsored body focused on increasing the supply of quality, affordable, sustainable homes, utilising state and private land, while ensuring a consistent pipeline of sites for the future. We produce affordable for sale homes, cost rental homes, and social homes. And the Land Development Agency performs as a landlord as well. And the Land Development Agency utilises a suite of design guidance documents to embed the principles of efficiency and standardization into its developments. So that's it. I suppose we'd like to open it up for questions for myself or for either of my two colleagues here.